Keyword development. We all stink at it. You know why? Because we're biased by our own search behavior. I've sat down with more people that are like, well, I don't search that way. I pack up my bag and I leave. Because unless you buy your own product every single day and that's how you stay in business, you need to make sure that your keywords resonate with the people that are typing things in. Don't look at your top 10 keywords report in your web analysis tool, because those are terms you're already ranking well for, duh. So therefore you type them in, you're like, oh, we're doing great. We're ranking well for all these terms. Well, that's because people are already finding you on those terms. You never know the terms that people might be typing in that you're not ranking well for because they're obviously not getting to your site from them. So the best search engine optimization people, in my opinion, are people that can take their own search behavior, ball it up, throw it out the window. Take your own bias and get rid of it. Because if you bias your own search on how you would search, you're only going to rank well for the terms that you yourself would find. And the closer you are to the product, the more likely you are to use things like acronyms, jargon, things that no one else knows but you and people in your industry. Now, if you're only selling to people in your industry, that's great. If you're not, then you need to call it what the man on the street calls it, or don't target those terms. I'll give you an example. We're working with a company. They do used office furniture, okay? They are like, well, for branding purposes, we want to rank well for the word used office furniture, but from a branding perspective, we want to call it pre-owned everywhere on the site. Pack up the bag, see ya. You know why? Because people don't type in pre-owned office furniture, and we showed this to them, but yet, because their brand, it's like, you have a great brand, nobody's coming to your site. I thought you stayed in business that way, by selling things to people that came to your site. So, you know, it's one of those things where you do need to balance brand versus what's good for search. You know, and this is one of those cases where it didn't make sense. They had to stick with what was best for their brand. I understand that. But I can't get your site to rank well if you're not willing to make certain changes. Don't think you're going to be able to trick Google or something like that, and I'm going to be able to get you ranked for some whiz-bang technique. It's not the case. You literally need to make changes to your site. But all isn't lost. You know, if you use tools, and how many of you have used the Overture keyword suggestion tool? Great. It's also bad. There's a lot of flaws inherent with the Overture keyword suggestion tool. Does anybody know any of the flaws? You got it. One of the things they do is broad match, if you didn't hear that. What that means is the singulars and plurals, there could be a big difference between who searches on them. They lump them together into one number. So if you target a singular, but most people type the plural, the Overture tool will not teach you which one's the right one to target, okay? Overture says, those misspellings, we're going to lump them in. We know what they really meant. So now you're not going to find a decent amount of misspellings for keywords that people might type in because Overture just lumps them all together because they know what you're really looking for. You want to do what I call starting wide, which is don't bias your results. If you are Prilosec and you sell a heartburn medication, don't start your keyword research on heartburn medication. Start it with heartburn. And you'll see that people are more likely to type in heartburn drugs than heartburn medication. You'll see that they're looking for heartburn symptoms. You know, you probably find some online Canadian pharmacy, heartburn drugs, whatever. But if you start wide, you're not going to bias your own results. If you start very narrow and say, oh, we do heartburn drugs, and you type in heartburn drugs into these kind of tools, that's what you're going to get back. And always remember that people search for solutions to problems and not the other way around. So there are some technical elements here that I want to go through. These are all tools that are in my bookmark, so you do not need to write them all down. The first thing I want to do, I've already given you the bad news. So before we get there, I want to show you a couple of tools. And actually, I'm going to skip ahead a bit to get to where we were talking about singulars versus plurals. How many of you have heard of Google Trends? Great. How many of you have actually used it? Great. Because you can do things to help you figure out should you use a singular or a plural. And here's an example. Let's look at accounting jobs versus accounting job. More than likely, they're going to be the same. But they're not here. How many of you would have guessed that, well, it's one or the other? You said, we're going to go for one or the other. Because you know what? The Overture tool would have given you the singular. Here you'll notice that more people type in the plural. Okay? That's one of the areas where the Overture tool absolutely stinks. And it's not a bad tool, but if you know the flaws inherent in the tool, which I'm trying to give you all today, now you know to look in other places before you make a conclusion based on those tools.